Ladies, hear me. When God is about to bless you, He doesn't send an email. He doesn't post it on your timeline. But make no mistake, He speaks. And if your spirit is spiritually alert, you will know. You'll feel it in your bones. You'll feel it in your bones before you see it with your eyes. Because right before the blessing breaks loose, the enemy gets nervous. Life gets loud. People get quiet. Doors start closing and you're left wondering, "Hey, God, what is happening to me?" But here's the truth. God is not punishing you. He's positioning. You didn't stumble into this moment by accident. That storm you're in, that confusion, that stretching, it's not chaos. It's construction. You're not being buried. You're being planted. And when you understand the 7 signs God sends before something big, you'll stop fearing the silence and start anticipating the shift. If you've ever asked God for more, if you've cried in secret and wondered, when will it be my turn? Then this message is for you. Because when heaven is getting ready to release something big in a woman's life, there are signs. And once you recognize them, you won't run from the process, you lean into it. Stay with me. Because by the time we reach the 7th sign, something inside you will awaken and you'll know your blessing is not just coming, it's already on the way. One of the clearest signs that God is about to bless a woman with something big is that everything around her starts to shift in unexpected, often uncomfortable ways. Things that once felt stable begin to shake. Friendships start to fade. Doors that once opened easily are now sealed shut. Plans that made perfect sense suddenly don't make sense at all. And in the middle of that confusion, it's tempting to believe that something is going wrong. But in reality, something bigger is going right. You just can't see it yet. See, divine disruption is never random. It's never meaningless. When God interrupts your regularly scheduled program, it's not to confuse you, it's to realign you. He knows where you're going, even when you don't. He sees the blessing ahead, and because he knows exactly what it requires, he begins moving the pieces of your life into the right place. That disruption is often the preparation that makes room for destiny. The problem is, disruption rarely feels holy. It feels like loss. It feels like betrayal. It feels like being forgotten. It feels like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling. But what if the very thing that's frustrating you is the thing that's freeing you? What if God is allowing things to fall apart, not to break you, but to break off what can't go with you into your next season? Look at the pattern throughout scripture. Before every major elevation, there was a disruption. Before Esther entered the palace, her entire world was shaken. She lost the protection of her family and was taken into an unfamiliar place. Before Ruth found Boaz and stepped into generational blessing, she experienced the disruption of widowhood and relocation. Before Mary gave birth to the Savior of the world, her engagement was threatened and her reputation was under attack. Disruption always comes first. Always comes first. It's heaven's way of telling you, oh, get ready. Something is coming that will change everything. And here's the key. How you respond in that moment of disruption will often determine how you receive what's next. If you resist it, you might delay the blessing. But if you embrace it, even through your tears, even through confusion, you position yourself to walk right into what God is preparing for you. Disruption doesn't mean disqualification. It means you're being refined, not rejected. Some of you are in that space right now. Things that used to work aren't working anymore. The people who used to support you have gone quiet. You feel out of place in rooms that used to feel like home. That's not a sign that you're behind. That's a sign that your capacity is expanding. God is clearing space. He's removing distractions. He's cutting away the extra weight so that when the blessing arrives, you're not just ready to receive it, you're strong enough to carry it. So don't curse the disruption. Don't despise the discomfort. Don't rush to rebuild what God is tearing down. Let it fall. Let it shift. Let it break. Because your destiny isn't behind you. It's in front of you. And what feels like chaos is actually strategy. What feels like a delay is divine timing. The woman who learns to recognize divine disruption is the woman who learns to walk boldly into her calling, knowing that every no, every closed door, every sudden change was part of a greater AS orchestrated by the hand of God. So if your life feels unstable right now, don't panic. Celebrate. Because when God is about to bless a woman with something big, he starts by shaking her world, not to destroy it, but to rebuild it stronger, wiser, and ready for the blessing that's already making its way toward her. There comes a moment in every woman's journey where the noise dies down. The prayers feel unanswered. The worship feels dry. The spiritual fire that once burned bright feels like a flickering flame. You show up, you serve, you pray, you cry, you cry, you cry, and yet heaven feels quiet. You begin to wonder, did I miss something? Did I do something wrong? But let me reassure you of something powerful. Just because God is silent doesn't mean he's absent. The silence of heaven is often the most sacred part of your journey. It's the moment between the planting and the blooming. It's the space between prophecy and fulfillment. And while it may feel like abandonment, it's actually a holy pause, divinely designed to develop your trust, deepen your character, and sharpen your spiritual ears. Because when God goes quiet, it's not to ignore you, it's to grow you. Think about it. When a teacher gives a test, she doesn't talk. Her silence doesn't mean she's left the classroom. It means it's your turn to apply what she already taught. In the same way, God's silence often comes right before a shift. He's not talking because he's watching. He's not answering because he's already given you the instruction. You're just in the proving ground now. The silence is where you learn whether your faith is based on feeling or on foundation. Many women give up right here. The quiet scares them. The lack of immediate feedback discourages them. But the woman who learns to stand firm during heaven's silence becomes the woman who can be trusted with greater responsibility. She's not moved by emotion. She's anchored in truth. And even when she can't hear God, she remembers what he said last. Sir. There is a maturity that develops in the silence that cannot be formed in the noise. When the miracles aren't flowing and the affirmation isn't constant and the breakthroughs seem to be delayed, that's when you discover the depth of your belief. That's when your roots go deeper. That's when your dependency shifts from what you feel to who you know. And that's when God sees that you're not just seeking his hand, you're seeking his heart. It's in the silence that strength is born. And it's in the silence that you learn to stop chasing signs and start chasing signs and start chasing him. Because signs will fade. Feelings will fluctuate, but the word of God will remain. And the woman who learns to hold on to that word, especially when heaven is quiet, is the woman who walks into her blessing with authority, not anxiety. You see, the enemy loves to attack in silence. Attack in silence. That's where he plants lies. God forgot about you. He's blessing others, but not you. You must have done something wrong, but you have to fight back with truth. Remember, Jesus was led into the wilderness by the Spirit, and it was in that quiet, dry place that the enemy tried to distort his identity. But Jesus didn't panic. He didn't argue. He simply responded with the word, and so must you. If you're in a season where heaven seems silent, don't retreat. Don't disconnect. Don't assume God is done. In fact, the silence may be the clearest sign that something is about to shift. A woman who is about to give birth doesn't hear applause in the delivery room. She hears groaning. She fears groaning. She feels pressure. It's not loud with encouragement. It's quiet with intensity. Why? Because something is being born. And silence always surrounds sacred things being formed. So hold on. Stay rooted. Keep praying even when you don't feel it. Keep worshiping even when it feels dry. Keep obeying even when you don't understand. Because when the silence lifts, and it will, you'll realize God never left. He was working behind the curtain, orchestrating the kind of blessing that needed quiet space to grow. And when it's revealed, it will have been worth every silent moment. There is a sacred loneliness that comes before divine elevation, a season where it feels like people are pulling away, the doors are shutting, and you're left walking a road that used to be filled with companions, but now it's just you. And in that moment, it's easy to misinterpret isolation as rejection, You wonder if you've done something wrong, if you're being forgotten, if maybe you're not enough. But hear this truth deep in your spirit. When God isolates a woman, it's not to punish her, it's to prepare her. God will often pull you away from the crowd, not because you're being dismissed, but because you're being distinguished. There are some things he cannot reveal to you in a noisy room. Some clarity you can't receive when you're surrounded by distractions. Some callings that require complete separation before manifestation. You're not being cut off, you're being set apart. Look through scripture and you'll see this pattern again and again. Joseph was isolated in the pit before he entered the palace. Moses was isolated in the wilderness before he stood before Pharaoh. David was isolated in the field before he was called to the throne. And Jesus himself was led into isolation in the desert before he began his public ministry. Why? Because preparation happens in private. God builds leaders in the lonely place. He shapes character in the quiet place. And he reveals identity when all the other voices go silent. There are certain blessings that only come to those who can handle solitude. If you need applause to keep moving, you'll never walk far. If you need agreement to obey God, your purpose will always be at the mercy of people. But when God is about to do something big in your life, He'll first teach you to walk along with Him so that when the blessing comes, it doesn't become your identity. He wants you to know who you are before the spotlight hits so that you're rooted in truth and not dependent on external validation. Some of you are in that season right now. People you loved stopped calling. The group you used to fit into now feels like a foreign place. Conversations are shorter. Shorter. Invitations stop coming. You feel invisible. But what if I told you you're not being left out? You're being lifted up. What if this isolation is actually a sign that God is removing the noise so you can finally hear Him clearly? Isolation creates room for revelation. It's where you start asking deeper questions, praying bolder prayers, and facing the parts of yourself that get overlooked in busy seasons. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's also powerful. Oh, because once you've been alone with God, you walk differently. You don't move out of fear of being left. You move with the confidence of someone who knows they're sent. This kind of preparation isn't flashy. It's not always inspirational. It often looks like quiet obedience, hidden growth, and invisible transformation. But don't be fooled. Just because it's unseen doesn't mean it's unimportant. What God builds in isolation will be the foundation that holds up the weight of what's coming. And when the time is right, He will bring the right people, the right doors, the right opportunity, and you'll be ready. Not desperate, not insecure, ready. So if you feel isolated right now, don't rush the process. Don't try to force yourself back into rooms God has already exited. Don't water yourself down just to be accepted. Let God finish what He started. Because this is not rejection. This is sacred separation. This is sacred separation. And when the preparation is done, the release will be undeniable. You won't have to chase the blessing. It will come looking for you. One of the most unmistakable signs that God is about to bless a woman with something big is that she begins to encounter favor in places where, by all logic, she shouldn't. Opportunities begin to present themselves in unexpected arenas. People who don't know her name begin to speak well of her. Rooms she never thought she'd enter start opening up. Not because of her connections, not because of her qualifications, but because of God's divine hand working behind the scenes. This is what we call unusual favor in unlikely places. It's the type of favor that doesn't make sense on paper. It bypasses your resume, goes beyond your resources. It breaks through cultural limitations, societal expectations, and personal insecurities. This kind of favor says, I'm choosing you, not because you're the most obvious candidate, but because God has marked you. And when that favor begins to flow, no one can take credit for it but God Himself. Think about Ruth. She was a Moabite widow, a foreigner with no status in Israel. By all accounts, she was the least likely woman to walk into generational blessing. And yet, she found favor in the fields of Boaz. She wasn't looking for a husband. She was just trying to survive. But her obedience, her humility, her consistency in doing the small things, those were the seeds that positioned her for unexpected favor in unfamiliar territory. What should have been a struggle, became a setup for destiny. Or take Esther, a Jewish girl in a Persian empire, orphan, hidden, forgotten, and yet she found favor with the king, not because she manipulated her way to the top, but because she was chosen for such a time as this. God placed her in the palace before the problem ever arose. Her favor was strategic, it was unlikely, and it was God ordained. This is how divine favor works. It finds you where you are, but it never leaves where it found you. It elevates you when you were, when you weren't looking to be seen. And when it's unusual favor, it shows up in places where you should have been overlooked. It causes people to say, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I feel led to help you. That's not luck. That's not charm. That's not charm. That's not coincidence. That's the fingerprint of God. If you've been walking through a season of obscurity, if you've been faithful in hidden places, consistent when no one was clapping, sowing seeds in silence, then get ready. Because when God decides it's time to shift you, it won't matter who knows your name. It won't matter who thought you weren't qualified. Favor speaks louder than credentials. Favor finds you even when others forget you. But here's the thing, favor is not always comfortable. Sometimes God's favor will put you in rooms where you feel out of place. It will surround you with people who seem more polished, more educated, more connected. And yet, you're the one he's chosen to bless. Why? Because favor has nothing to do with human approval. It has everything to do with divine assignment. Why? So don't be surprised when doors start opening that you didn't knock on. Don't shrink back when your name is called in a room you weren't expecting to enter. Don't disqualify yourself when God is trying to elevate you. This isn't about your background. It's about his purpose. And when God releases unusual favor, no rule, no limitation, no person can stand in his way. If you're seeing glimpses of this, random breakthroughs, surprise connections, unexplainable moments of grace, no, that is not random. It's a sign. God is preparing to bless you with something big, and he's already letting the favor run ahead of you to clear the way. Keep walking in faith. The places that seem unlikely are about to become the launching pad for your next level. There's a moment before a major move of God in a woman's life when something deep inside begins to shift. It's hard to explain. Nothing may have changed on the outside. You may still be going through the same routine, surrounded by the same people, living in the same place. But internally, something is stirring. You can't settle. You can't shake the feeling that you are made for more. Your spirit becomes restless, not in a chaotic or negative way, but in a way that makes you spiritually alert, expectant, almost like you're pregnant with something unseen. That restlessness is not a weakness, it's a signal. It's heaven's way of letting you know a divine transition is near. This restlessness doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It doesn't mean you're discontent. It means your current situation can no longer contain what God has placed inside you. The space that once felt comfortable now feels tight. The conversations that once fed you now feel shallow. The atmosphere that once inspired you now feels draining. It's not that anything around you got worse. It's that you grew and your spirit knows that it's time to stretch. When God is preparing to bless a woman with something big, he often won't show her the full picture right away. Instead, he'll awaken her spirit first. He'll stir a divine dissatisfaction, not with life itself, but with staying the same. You'll feel it in prayer. You'll sense it in worship. You'll find yourself dreaming differently, praying bolder, hungering for things that your current life can't yet hold. This isn't emotional instability. It's prophetic unrest. It's spiritual pregnancy. In the same way, a woman in the final stages of pregnancy becomes restless, nesting, moving, preparing without even realizing why. Your soul starts doing the same. You're preparing for a birth, even if you don't have the full blueprint. That restlessness is God whispering, hey, get ready. I'm about to do something new. And yet, this restlessness is also a test. Will you press in or pull back? Will you lean into the discomfort or will you try to quiet it with distraction? Many people miss the move of God because they confuse restlessness with confusion, restlessness with confusion. But restlessness is not confusion. It's revelation trying to break through. It's your spirit detecting what your mind hasn't caught up with yet. When your spirit becomes restless, don't ignore it. Get still, get in position, listen closely. This is the time to be more intentional with your time, your habits, your relationships. God is calling you to consecrate yourself, to make room, to prepare, not because you're empty, but because you're about to overflow. What He's getting ready to pour into you requires capacity. And the restlessness you feel, that's your capacity expanding. You may not know what's coming, but your spirit does. That's why you feel the way you feel. That's why average no longer satisfies. That's why you're craving more. More of His presence, more clarity, more meaning. That's why you're no longer okay with comfort zones that once fit just fine. Your spirit is pushing you forward before your feet even move. So don't fight the restlessness. Embrace it, steward it. Let it drive you into deeper prayer, into intentional quiet, into fresh alignment. You're not crazy. You're not unstable. You're being awakened. And what you're carrying is too heavy for where you are now. The woman who learns to discern restlessness as a sign from God is the woman who doesn't miss her moment. She doesn't settle for what is when her spirit knows what's possible. She doesn't cling to the familiar when the unfamiliar is calling her name. That inner restlessness is sacred. It's prophetic. And if you lean into it, you realize it's not a warning. It's a welcome, a divine invitation to prepare because something big is coming. You said, when God is about to bless a woman with something big, He rarely waits until she has it all figured out before He starts moving. In fact, one of the most divine signs that something major is on the horizon is that provision begins to show up before the full picture is even clear. It's as if heaven starts delivering the resources, connections, opportunities, and confirmations before you even fully understand what you're building. You look around and start asking, "Oh, why is this happening now? What is this for?" It may not make sense yet, but God is providing in advance for what He's preparing to reveal. Provision is one of God's most loving hints that you're being positioned for more. It comes in the form of unexpected favor, timely connections, sudden clarity, or even a job offer or opportunity you didn't apply for. Sometimes a repayment or appearing out of nowhere. Other times it's finances being released just when you needed them most, even before you had the plan in place to use them. When this happens, understand this is not coincidence. This is divine orchestration. God doesn't wait for you to be ready in the natural before He begins releasing what's yours in the spirit. He prepares the ground, then gives you the seed. Think about it. Noah received instructions to build the ark before there was any rain. And yet, provision came, every piece of wood, every measurement, every resource, long before the skies turned gray. That's how God works. He releases provision as a faith builder. He gives you pieces before He gives you the full. He gives you the full pattern. But this also means you need spiritual sensitivity. Because if you're not tuned in, you'll miss what's being handed to you. You might dismiss what's divine because it doesn't look like the finished product. Provision in the early stages often looks small. It looks random. It looks like an open door in an area you didn't even plan to walk into. But that's the beauty of how God operates. He gives you enough to move, not everything to understand. And He does it this way to keep you walking by faith, not by sight. Some of you are seeing signs of this right now. You're getting calls you didn't expect. You're being offered roles or positions that seem to come out of nowhere. You're meeting people who carry keys to places you didn't even know you needed to go. Or maybe you just feel a strong urge to start preparing for something, even though you're not sure why. That's God placing provision on your path before He reveals the final destination. Why does He do it like this? Because when the blessing comes, He doesn't want you scrambling. He wants you positioned. He doesn't want you reacting. He wants you reacting. He wants you ready. And He knows that if He waits until you're fully in the moment, it'll be too late to get prepared. So He sends the provision early, almost like breadcrumbs, so you'll know which direction to start walking. And here's the truth. Many women miss their moment because they don't recognize the provision when it comes. They wait for something grand. When what God sends often looks like something small and simple. But if you can be faithful over the little, if you can steward what shows up now, He will trust you with the overflow that's coming next. So if things are starting to fall into place, if we're not sure what they're falling into, if you're not sure what they're falling into, pay attention. It's not just provision. That's prophecy in motion. God is giving you the tools, the people, the clarity, the peace, and the resources before He drops the full vision in your lap. He's not late. He's not random. He's building something with you. And when the blessing finally unfolds, you'll look back and realize He was preparing you the whole time.